and in the skit, it does get quite a chuckle. I was very proud of that. I knew I had to hang a curtain on the inside the apartment. I had to hang a poster that looked like they were playing Pin the Tail on the Donkey, and some balloons. And once all those additional props were in place, I think that it really created a three-dimensional aspect to the apartment. Now I had to make costumes. I knew that Lucy's costume was absolutely ridiculous and it was going to be very unique. And so I asked Tiffany if she wouldn't mind finding a shirt and some leggings that would fit her. I made her cape. I made the emblems that went on the cape and the chest for her. And she bought some boxers that I think were very close to the boxer shorts that Lucy wore on the episode. We found some old galoshes type boots and put together a halfway decent costume. I was fortunate enough to find a football helmet on eBay that was very similar in its style and size, and it was in white and red, and I quickly changed that, and here's an image of that. You can see I think we got pretty close on making her helmet look pretty accurate. Tiffany nailed the part of Lucy. And then I knew I needed to make the George costume, and it had to be right. Now, when you watch the episode of I Love Lucy, you'll notice that George's costume, it's a black and white episode, but his costume doesn't look the way it looked when you watched George's black and white episodes in the Adventures of Superman show. When you see him then in season 1, you notice that the cape is almost black, and the trunks are almost black, and the boots are very dark, and the emblem, the red S, looks like it's a black S, and the costume itself is white almost, and that's how they created the costume to look for the airing of those in black and white. However, when the I Love Lucy episode was filmed, George was wearing his color costume now. But it was filmed, or played back at least, in black and white. And so the color contrasts are very different. You notice now that the trunks, instead of looking black, are actually a little lighter color gray than the blue costume part. And the same thing with the cape and the boots and so on. So this kind of set me off a little bit. I realized that if I was going to do this right, I had to be very meticulous about getting my shades of gray to match the shades that George had. And it took me a few weeks to find all those materials, but in the end, I was able to find fabrics that I could make my own costume to look like the costume that was worn by George. And as you can see, I think we got pretty close. I'm happy to say I made that costume all by myself. I didn't know anything about sewing on the sewing machine 2 years ago, and now I'm sewing George Reeves costumes for myself. How life has changed in a short amount of time. So now we have our set, we have our props, we have our costumes. Now I needed a cast. And realized that we were not going to be able to do the entire episode. There just wasn't going to be enough time to prepare and rehearse to do the whole thing. Plus, it would require multiple set changes back and forth. So we focused on the last half of the episode. So I started approaching people and told them that their parts were not going to be too arduous to learn, and that when we got there, if we were all prepared and had looked at it in advance, we would be able to pull this off. I knew that I needed a strong character actor for the part of Ricky. Ricky probably has the most lines and carries the show. There's no doubt about that. So I needed somebody strong. Well, Stephen Kirk graciously agreed to play that part. Stephen is known by many people in Metropolis. He's a fixture down there. Every year he hosts everything. He's a fantastic presence down there. And when I contacted him originally about doing the role, he offered an awful lot of great suggestions. The concept of what you see now and where it started has changed 40 times probably since we first talked about it. But ultimately, I think we came up with a halfway decent presentation. So now I got my Lucy, I got my Ricky, I got my Superman. I needed an Ethel and a Fred. I had worked with Ashley Bayless a couple of months prior when we went over to St. Louis Children's Hospital in costume to entertain the children out there. And Ashley had a fantastic stage presence, and the way she worked with the kids, she's just a natural. She was just perfect, and I loved her for this part. And when I asked her, she agreed. Her husband, Scott Bayless, also is known to many people in that area, and he's a wonderful man and very well known for making some very high quality superhero costumes that many people may have purchased. And they also agreed that their son, Yeshua, would play the part of Little Ricky if I couldn't find somebody else. Well, I wasn't going to turn them down. I loved that they had somebody that was so willing to have that part because it required saying some lines. So Ashley played Ethel, Yeshua plays Little Ricky, and now I needed my Fred cast. Well, as many of you know, Brian K. Morris is an amazing, wonderful personality. He's always down in Metropolis. He's got his hands in on everything in a good way. Anything he touches turns to gold, including the part of Fred Mertz. The lovable Fred, the grumpy old Fred, played by Brian, was priceless. One of the joys that I have watching that is watching Brian nail the part of Fred. And he did an amazing job. So, in my mind, as long as everybody had their scripts and we knew where we were going to be, all we had to do was meet down there and rehearse. The problem was, I had forgotten that this whole scenario revolved around a child's birthday party. That's right, Little Ricky's birthday party. I needed more than just Little Ricky to pull this thing off. In fact, there were a number of children in that episode, and I hadn't secured any children. Nobody. So when I get there, I'm a little frantic this year at the Metropolis Superman celebration because I've got a wonderful cast, I've got great sets, costumes, everything's ready to go. I don't have a birthday party of children. So, as I'm meeting and greeting with people from day one, families were coming up to me, shaking hands with me, taking pictures with me in my George Reeves costume. And I couldn't help but look over their shoulders and take a look at their children as we were talking so that I could ask them if it was okay if their kids stood in as cast members in my skit. It was a moment of panic, and I had to be pretty persistent and convincing in selling this to these families. Well, Chris and Annette Hale, who are wonderful people, they're down there. They've been down there for the last couple of years, and they have 2 small children as well. They also have screen credits in our skit, and they agreed to be up there. Now, all they had to do was stand there and pretend like they were all part of a birthday party. Nobody had any individual speaking parts. They did have to chime in from time to time as a group, but that was easily rehearsed, and they pulled it off just fine. And Annette agreed to be the parent at the party, who was also helping corral the children while they were playing pin the tail on the donkey on the door. And she also has a screen credit as well in our skit. Also, 2 little kids wasn't going to be enough. Also, I needed at least 1 more, and including little Ricky. And Rick Murray's granddaughter, Maddie, was also there, and she was perfect. She had a lot of energy, and she had a lot of ideas during rehearsals. But she did a great job as well. So we have our children. Now I've got enough kids for our birthday party. And so we met on Friday. We had our rehearsal. We blocked it out. The cast members were thrilled with the set pieces. There was a functional kitchen window that I, as Superman, would come swinging through when I made my grand entrance. And the rehearsal went off very, very well. The morning of the skit, I had to run down to a makeup store and get a bunch of gray makeup because not only did the to be in blacks and whites, but we also had to put gray makeup on our faces. If you watch the color selection on this DVD, you'll notice that some of us did a better job with our makeup than others. I'm the guilty party that didn't do as good of a job. I think had I spent more time working on getting my face paint done right than some of the other preparation, it would have looked better. But there were things that had to be done. And as the creator, the producer, the director, and star of this, I had a lot of hats to wear. So I didn't have a whole lot of time when I got backstage to be ready. Anyway, that is the end of our featurette. I hope you enjoyed this DVD. Those of you who were there to watch it, I hope you enjoyed it live. Those of you who weren't able to make it, I hope that you appreciate what we've done here. And just know that this is the first year of many that we plan on doing this grand scale of entertainment down there at the annual George Awards and auction that Jim Hambrick holds in Metropolis. We feel like people have come from a long way away to have a weekend of fun and excitement, and having a little added entertainment in this format goes a long way. People have been talking about this skit ever since we did it back in June. And the fact that people are interested even now in October to get a copy speaks highly for the level of the production that we put on. And I am so grateful that it went well. I'm so grateful that I had a fantastic ensemble cast that was there helping me all along the way. And I couldn't have done it without a single person. Thank you again, and I hope you've enjoyed this. Take care and God bless.